What radio? The music you want.
With your host, Keys Dan.
I've been going to this high school for 7.5 years. I'm no dummy.
RadioWhat.com. What's up, party people? It's Keys Dan with RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com, coming to you live in a living color from the Radio What studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Famous? It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me, yes, me, at your next event. I like to play music for the people. Today on the program, Taylor Sivils. Taylor is an actress and a cosplayer, and I found her on Instagram, and she's local to Arkansas. So I get to go visit with her, and you get to listen to our conversation in just a few minutes. This week's shows, it's Thursday, so tomorrow night, Friday, I'll be at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. Come on out and play with me. It's a video dance party karaoke jam. They have a full bar. The kitchen is open, burgers, wings, and Jersey Girl pizza. They also have the pool tournament that goes on every Friday night at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. So you don't want to miss that. Come on out. Play some pool, sing some songs, dance some dancing. And on the party patio, they got shuffleboard, they got foosball, 2 foosball tables, darts, and a giant Jenga game. So there's always something to do at the Rab in Conway, Arkansas. Come play with me from 8 p.m. until almost 2 in the a.m. And then on Saturday, I got a wedding. You know I likes to do the weddings. It's down in Cabot, Arkansas. Yeah, party with the people at their happiest times, at their happiest moments. I get to be a part of it. Yeah, jealous? You should be. Maybe you can have me at your next wedding. Yeah, your first and last wedding. 'Cause love is forever, baby. May the honeymoon never end. Party on. All right. Without further ado, let's get into it with Taylor Sivils. Now, thankfully, she lives pretty close in Arkansas, in Little Rock. So I'm going to go meet up with her over at the Starbucks in Little Rock, or at least one of the Starbucks in Little Rock. Traveling to Taylor Sivils now. Taylor Sivils?
Yes.
That's it?
Yeah.
Taylor Sivils?
You were the first one to get that right.
Well, you've said it enough times. I've watched your videos. And
you watch my stuff?
Yeah, some of your videos that are on the Instagram.
Gotcha.
And that's how I really got to know you a little bit online, so in a social situation. But you were asking me something before I hit the play button. What was it?
Shoot, I can't remember.
Well, that how I got interested in you.
Yeah. I don't know.
Give the people a little bio of who you are, Taylor Sivils.
Well, I'm born and raised in Arkansas. I have a passion for acting, cosplaying, singing, a myriad of different hobbies. I've always been interested in the arts, even as a kid. I was that overly dramatic one that would beg my dad to put the camera on me, let me sing, let me do this, that, and everything on vacation, put on a show for everyone. And it translated into my adult life a little bit. Mm-hmm. So give the people a little idea of what's the main thing that you do? What's the thing that you love the most about your life so far? Because you're a very young person. I'm 50, and I know that you're a long way from 50. So you have your whole life ahead of you, and I'm kind of excited to know how you got to where you are now, and how do you feel with your life so far, you know. And if you notice, there's background noise. We're in Little Rock. I don't know what street this is on. We're off Cantrell.
We're off Cantrell at the Starbucks. It's a good a place to meet as any. I'm very portable, battery operated, and I like to meet people wherever they feel comfortable. And Taylor Sivils, this is the spot you wanted to meet.
Yeah, it's right across the street from my day job, so it works out perfectly.
Fantastic. Well, okay, everybody needs a day job, especially if you're in the entertainment business. You need that insurance job.
Oh, yes.
To help you live day to day. What kind of work do you do during the day?
I am a data entry clerk for Vestcom, and I handle the Dollar General account. So if you go into any of their stores, especially recently, I handle all of the stack tags. So any of the tags that you see hanging up in the store, I create those from scratch every week.
Sounds like a smart job.
No.
Okay. An entry-level job then?
It's pretty entry-level. There is a little bit more involved with it. You have to be really good with Excel, and you have to be really good at taking directions.
Okay.
But
are you good at Excel? Are you good at taking directions?
I need to work on both a little bit, honestly, but I know enough to get by.
And for those that aren't getting to see this visually, and most of you aren't because there's nobody really around us. We're sitting outside. She made the hand gesture of the wavy hand. What do you call that? When the here? Yeah.
It's like so. So I talk with my hands so much, and I never grew out of that.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is something from an early age, and you say you grew up in Arkansas. Where were you born? I
was born in Benton.
Benton, Arkansas. Not too far away. You know, it is getting cold out here. Are you cold?
Nah.
Okay. It's fall in Arkansas. I'm from Miami, so before I got here, I wasn't that used to the change of weather. It was always about 78 degrees. But there is a change of season here, and we're in fall. Taylor Sivils. And I'm going to keep saying your name so that way people remember your name as they're going through this podcast and listening. Taylor Sivils. They're going to want to know, how do you spell that? How do you spell Taylor Sivils?
It's like the Civil War, only with S's on both ends. So a lot of people will try to add the extra I at the end, even though there isn't one. It's pretty cut and dry. I think it's German.
German. Okay. So you are born in Benton. How's the family life growing up?
Something that's probably better talked about in therapy, honestly.
Perfect. A lot of people think that these podcasts are very therapeutic, but you can choose to eliminate whatever you don't like about your life. This is your story. So I'm never one to be too invasive. You tell what you want about your upbringing, your growing up.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, my parents always supported me to a point, but they always thought that growing up with brains and stuff and knowing how hard the entertainment business was, in a way they tried to protect me from it and be like, you need to have something to fall back on. It doesn't matter if this is your passion, you need to have a backup plan always, because we can't always support you and we're not going to. So it did give me a much stronger work ethic, and it probably made me more stubborn in the long run.
Well, yeah, that's what parents are supposed to do. Teach you how to become people.
Yes.
And it sounds like they did just that. They gave you some, yeah.
I'm very grateful for them. So, from an early age, I was always taught, if you want something, you earn it. So by the time I was like 8, 9 years old, they're like, we have kids in the neighborhood that you can babysit, you can dog walk, you can do all that. You can mow grass. We're not paying for your school trips. We're not paying for your manga collection. We're not paying for anything. You want fun stuff? You want to go to the movies with friends, do all that? You earn it. Because if you have to get money from us, we're going to treat it like a bank loan, and you're going to pay it back with interest. And that was just to teach me the value of working hard for it. And that actually came as the biggest lesson and the greatest reward whenever I went to Japan back in 2015. So I had, sorry, I feel like I'm manipulating the podcast by saying all of this.
It's your podcast.
Oh.
You tell your story the way you want to. I'm listening and I'm hearing some things that I get to unpack. For your 8th birthday, what did you get? A job, mostly.
Yeah.
And I heard some of the nerds that are listening, and yes, I'm calling you nerds, heard manga and went pa 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 pa.
Yeah.
So you got some nerd points with the manga, and then you went to Japan. More nerd points.
Oh yeah.
Not that all the Japanese are nerds. We love our Japanese peoples.
Oh yes, it was the most rewarding experience. But so my parents got divorced whenever I was like 16, and shortly after that, I did homeschooling and was still living with my mom at the time. And my mom was like, okay, well, if you want to do homeschooling, you're going to pay for it yourself, because at the time, K-12 was not free in Arkansas as far as for the high school portion. And I needed money, so I was just like, I don't mind doing that. And then I got an offer from People to People International. And they were like, hey, we've got this trip coming up. You know, if you're interested, get reference letters, get all that, fill out the application. If you're accepted, the trip's going to be like $5,000 plus any travel money and your passport and all that jazz. I was already paying for my car at the time, my own food, all of that stuff, while maintaining a 3.5 GPA. I worked 3 jobs for 6 months to raise that money, and my parents never offered me a dime of it.
This is a hard-working 16-year-old, or hard-working teenager.
It was something that
have been working hard since an early age, so that instills a work ethic.
Yes.
And we're kind of leading into you being in the entertainment business and enjoying some geekery. And the entertainment business, I tell people, the money can be good, but the work's not steady. You have to hustle. So this is interesting, because usually when a child is homeschooled, they have to have at least one parent at home to homeschool them. Who homeschooled you?
Neither did. This was just for my junior year and into my senior year of high school. So I was working, doing all that, and I went through Penn Foster, which is an amazing program. I don't recommend going to their college, but their high school portion, it's legitimate, and you work at your own pace to get your stuff. And they were actually cheaper than K-12 at the time. So my mom, she got her GED.
Sure.
Whenever she was 29.
Yeah. Well,
so
go mom. Good job.
Yeah, like, she had no way of knowing how to. She's like, I haven't been in school in years. You know, you're kind of on your own. And Penn Foster had a great program where if there was anything that I didn't know, I always had access to teachers and could ask them questions. It was very interactive. I could interact with other students.
Yeah.
I just chose not to.
No, but you say you got homeschooled. You know, I have a child that's homeschooled, and her mother is the one that provides the education. But you were homeschooled junior and senior year. You did it mostly on your own?
Yes, and I worked at Everett Buick GMC for all of that. I think, yeah, because they got rid of the Pontiac. I worked there for a few years, so I was doing that while going to school to help make ends meet. And they started me out doing like 35 hours a week. And they did that for most of the time I was there.
At Everett Buick GMC.
Yes, and I will always be very grateful to Dwight and Susie and Chad, because the main thing that got worked out whenever I did go to Japan is they allowed me to work more hours at that job to where I could help earn the money.
That is cool in the gang. Good job.
Yeah.
All right. And so this is you at 16 years old.
It was me at 18.
18 years
Yeah,
old.
as far as with the Japan thing.
Yes. All right. So anything interesting in high school? The manga collection. How big did that grow?
Oh, shoot. I used to have an old YouTube channel that had all of it. At one point, I had 5 bookshelves full, I think. And it was about 3,000 titles, maybe. And it was the full collections for most of them.
I'm not that familiar with manga. From what I'm understanding, manga can go 1,000 issues.
Yes.
How many 1,000 issues do you have?
I've sold off a lot of it. The only ones that I've really
kept... Or did you have? Let's go with that, yeah.
I had so many. So many. It was...
You could name drop some of the best titles that you were into.
One of the ones that I'm still into that hasn't ended yet, that I've been following since the beginning, is Skip Beat. And if anyone knows of that series, they did make an anime, or tried to, that we never got a season 2 out of. And it stopped right as the main character, Kyoko, got into the start of her acting career. So growing up with that as a role model for me really helped. And I know a lot of people are not going to relate to, oh, a manga character, they're not real. Why would you have that as an inspiration? She started out like this pure innocent girl, got jaded by this guy that was not good and wanted to get back at him by getting into show business. And then she found herself within acting and was able to heal that way. So that was is still one of my favorite titles. I also liked
Taylor Sivils, the people that are inspired by cartoon characters. Yeah, tell that to Batman. Tell that to Wonder Woman. Tell that to Spider-Man and Iron Man and Captain America and all these people that really are inspired by these people. Manga is just a very similar, but it is from another culture.
Yes.
And you're into things that are Japanese as well. I did read that on your Instagram. I've been stalking the gram. Taylor Sivils, check it out.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, good follow. Very happy and kind of interesting. There was one that just came up and you were dressed up in some kind of makeup.
Oh yes, I love horror films, so I do a lot of the macabre makeup. I'm always testing out new things. I was always into Buffy the Vampire Slayer growing up. Another great role model out there. But the character that always was most fascinating to me was Willow, especially whenever she turned dark in season 6. And so one of the most talented makeup artists that I found on YouTube.
Hey, wait, is that a spoiler?
Yes.
Season 6,
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's about 15 years ago. But
Shoot, I forget that some people still never grew up with that.
All right, watch the Buffy, the Vampire Slayer, because it doesn't take after the movie. It takes after the series, the books, right? Really, and I was into Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I dug Willow, not because she's a redhead, yes, and I like redheads, and I'm looking at a blonde, which is great, and hey, all women are beautiful, let's put it that way. But Taylor Sivils, you got into the Willow character because she turned into a witch and became a bit darker, is that right?
Yes. So just the character dynamic of Willow was amazing to see on screen. And the actress that played her, Allison Hannigan, she is amazing. I always have looked up to her. And
yes, she's the one-time in band camp girl, isn't she? Is that the same girl?
I don't think so. Maybe?
This one time in band camp? Yeah, American Pie.
Oh, yeah, then yes.
She's the same girl. Yes. So, yes, that character, she's a great actress. She really is. Yeah, I've seen her in different things. And, yeah, the one time in band camp. All right. That stuck in my head. Going back to Willow.
So, actually going back to the makeup artist.
Yes.
So Brooke Creative, she is tagged on my Instagram.
Okay.
For the inspiration, you guys should check out some of her other looks. She's amazing. She did a Dark Willow makeup tutorial. And I took that and kind of ran with it. And as soon as I started getting into like the fake bruising and the really creepy looking stuff, that was something that I always wanted to translate in my videos and put myself out there that way and grow on those skills. Because there's so many different makeup styles, and I love makeup, but I was never drawn to glam. I was drawn to either the natural Japanese style, or I was drawn to full out, oh my gosh, this scary human being. Is this thing even human? So
are you one of these that are trying to give makeup tutorials of your own?
No.
Can you kind of explain the look that you're creating today? Because your eyes are a bit darker than some. Just the look that you have on right now, Taylor Sivils.
This was more of just I wanted to play around with purple eyeshadow and probably went a little too crazy, but think maybe more along the lines of Sarah Jessica Parker and Hocus Pocus. The character Sarah.
Okay.
It's kind of what that and the red lip was going for a little bit, and most of it was just I didn't want to come here looking like, dead.
No.
Without makeup, I look pretty dead.
Well, no. You have a very pale face. You put a lot of white base. Is that it? And then the red lipstick really stands out.
Yes.
On that, and then the smoky eyes with the purple eyeshadow. And ladies of the 70s would never say you have too much purple eyeshadow, or blue for that matter. There's never enough.
True.
So perfect. So is this a look that you created just for today, or do you change your looks often?
I change my looks quite often. Actually, for the most part, unless I'm going somewhere or doing something, I don't like wearing makeup. I know that sounds terrible, especially since I have a love for it, but I don't know how to explain this.
Well, your day-to-day work, do you deal with the public, or is it mostly phones and the computer?
It's not even phones. It's literally just the computer and emailing back and forth. So since I'm stuck in a little office cubicle, I'm just kind of like, unless I'm going to see my agent after work or doing something like that or doing karaoke or like little things like that, there's no reason for me to wear it because it clogs your pores and it's not good to wear makeup every day.
Okay. And have you ever had a problem with the skin with makeup, with so much makeup?
Not exactly, because I've got a pretty good skincare routine, but I do know that I have a bad habit of sometimes forgetting to take it off. As far as eye makeup's okay, but like there has been like 1 or 2 times in my life where I've forgotten to take off my full coverage foundation, which sounds disgusting. But it took those couple of times of sitting there and going, my skin reacted to it the next day because it's not good for you and it ages your skin. So I'm like, it's better to just not do it.
So good. There is a good skin regimen for taking off the makeup. Now those 2 times, or those few times, you fell asleep with your makeup on, I'm guessing?
Yes, those have always been at conventions where I would be up for 20 hours, sleeping 4 of it, doing just enough to shower, do the next cosplay, and then go out to whatever other event was happening.
All right. Over the course of those last few conversations, we've got stuff to talk about. 18 years old, you go to Japan. I know the people are kind of with bated breath going, well, tell us about the Japan thing. Keys Dan, you ever going to get back to that? Well, of course, Taylor Sivils, she's got a story to tell. And, okay, growing up through high school, was it mostly manga, and how was the friend situation?
I didn't really have too many people I could call friends, and it's not that I didn't have people that I liked and that I hung out with and that I hung out with outside of school, but I was never super close to them. I actually only have 2 people that I still talk to from high school, and one of them's the only one that I could really truly consider a friend. No offense to the other person, we're just not that close. But I was always kind of the more keep to yourself, speak when spoken to, introverted wallflower.
Well, yeah, that sounds like a cosplayer to me. Because when you get into cosplay, you are, you could be out there. But then anything outside of cosplay, very introverted, very shy, very to yourself. I've seen the memes. I've seen and they're so real. They're so true.
Yeah, they're not lying. And it's taken me, and I'll be 23 Monday. It's taken me this long to come out of my shell to be something where if I'm not acting out a character, to still have that at least air of extrovertedness. Okay.
Taylor Sivils, early in life, did you grow up? What were your likes as a kid? Be it comic books or superheroes or anything. What was your interest at growing up?
Anime, fantasy. I was always into novels. I liked writing for a time. Actually, one of my dreams as a kid was to become a novelist and be self-published, but since then I've kind of...
What kind of writings did you do?
Mostly short stories and poems.
Okay. Anything that you shared with people? No, never shared anything with anyone?
I've shared a couple within my creative writing classes in school.
Okay.
And the teachers always liked it, but they were very concerned to the point where they called my parents because they're just like, her writing's great, but it's disturbing.
So the subject matter.
Yeah. I was always very open and honest. I used that as a way to basically get my feelings down on paper. I had a lot of stuff happen over the course of my life, and a lot of it I did bring on myself in hindsight. But I put myself into a lot of scary situations. And so I'm now battling with PTSD, depression, and the only way that I can figure out how to put those feelings out there is on paper. Now, whenever you're an angsty teenager and you write about being very open and honest about, suicide, or watching your friend or someone that you loved blow their brains out, obviously people are going to get concerned.
Okay, so Taylor Sivils, obviously these are things that you had to deal with growing up?
Yes.
Several times or one time?
I've always had the suicidal ideation. It's not something I'm proud of, but it is a part of my story, and eventually I'll figure out a way to tell it without sounding like a victim.
Right.
To where it'll help other people. But
well, right now it is helping other people. Say no to suicide, and if you have suicidal ideologies, talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You know,
and don't be afraid.
There's a hotline.
Actually, the hotlines suck.
Oh, okay.
Just
Something
find someone that you trust, and don't be afraid to be very open and honest with the person. Be like, hey, this is how I feel, but I'm not actively doing anything to do it. And just have someone that can be a soundboard that can help you work through those feelings, either in therapy or in a close friend. Just find that safe space, because it's something that needs to be talked about. Because most people that are fixated on it to a point aren't actually actively trying to do anything about it.
Right.
But
so Taylor Sivils, I know it's very subjective. Why did the hotline suck? What happened? What was your experience?
They aren't too caring, and they just want you to go to a hospital. And in some instances, yes, a hospital is worth it for some people, but in today's economy, most of us don't have the insurance, and even if we have insurance, they're going to deny the claim. So if you're already struggling with money problems and you feel that way in part due to that, it's just going to create matters that are worse. And a lot of times you only feel that way in a moment because you're overwhelmed and you're trying to figure out how to deal with things versus actively trying to do it.
Right. So subjectively, going to the hospital, and I'm going to say, if you slit your wrist, yes, go to the hospital.
Yes, definitely.
But before that actual happens, you should be able to call somebody and have them talk you down.
Exactly.
Just talk to you.
Yeah. Most of the time, that's all that's needed. But if you are actively engaging in self-harm, then at that point, do seek other professional help. You don't necessarily have to go to a hospital. You can go to a psychiatrist, and so long as you're not doing it to where they can see, like, oh, you cut near a vein, you're obviously truly trying to kill yourself, they're going to help talk you through it to find new ways to cope with it. Because I think self-harm for a lot of people is more of a coping mechanism of dealing with it than actually trying to, like, you know, have those emo moments that a lot of people over-exaggerate, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Taylor Sivils, for sharing that little bit. And I'm guessing that you've dealt with other people that have committed suicide.
Yes, actually. This guy that I was involved with that I never had any business being with, but, you know, 13-year-olds, we think we know everything. I got involved with a guy that was 18. A lot of stuff happened. And I walked in on him blowing his brains out.
Ooh, how long had you known him?
2 years.
And with hindsight, I know it's hard for a 13-year-old to even notice
2020.
Yeah, to notice the signs.
He was very manipulative, and he would be classified as a child predator because at the time we got together, he was 17 and I was 12. We had no business being friends, we had no business being together, and it was a very, very toxic relationship.
Okay.
So
all right.
It's taken 10 years of therapy to move past it.
Thank you, Taylor Sivils. Okay.
Yeah.
So childhood, eventful is the short word. Any happiness, any joy in your childhood,
yes.
Good times. I see a big smile on your face, and I'm happy to see it.
Yeah, I didn't mean to move into too many depressing things for people.
No, please. These are things that make you who you are today, and this is your story, Taylor Sivils. So moving on from 13 to 18. What are the extracurriculars? What are, besides the manga?
Besides cosplay.
And you were cosplaying at that point.
Oh,
okay, from an early age.
Yeah, I've always.
When did you get into that?
As a kid, I liked dressing up in. Halloween was always my favorite holiday. I loved dressing up as like Disney princesses and things like that. And as I got older, of course, I went to different types of cosplay. You've seen some of them on my Instagram. Since I have two different ones, one of them was a personal one, and this one I just started recently to kind of keep my life separate to where people who were following me because of acting could see my acting versus a billion pictures of my cats.
Right. You're showcasing the acting and the cosplay side of it. And yes, I have similar instances. The What Makes You Famous podcast only has people that I've had on the podcast, nothing else. And then there's a Radio What, and there's a Keys Dan. So it's good to separate the different interests if people want to follow those portions of your life. And you're getting more and more interesting as we're talking, Taylor Sivils. I knew you had a story. Everybody has a story, but your story is just unfolding. So cosplay. You started not just on Halloween. Did you ever go to conventions at a young age? Oh, well, when? When did that start?
That's a great question. Probably something that needs to be double confirmed by my dad for like the exact year, but I want to say I was 11 when I went to my first one. Yeah,
we go with fuzzy history here on the What Makes You Famous podcast. I don't look anything up, but other people can. And I'm sure, hey, we don't have to remember everything. We're not perfect.
Yeah, I went to my first con. I didn't cosplay my very first time, but I did cosplay my second time and start slowly integrating myself into it. I didn't start really doing it from a big level and going to conventions outside of Arkansas until 2013.
Oh, so you've been to ones outside. So what was the first one at 11, if you can remember? Which Comic-Con was that?
The one that they hold up in Springdale. I want to say it's like Arkansas Anime Fest, maybe?
Wow, that's kind of far up there. Who took you up there at 11 years old?
My dad.
Oh, Dad.
We had family up there. It was the weekend we were down there anyways. It just kind of lined up, and I'm like, hey, Dad, I want to go to this. And he's just like, okay, whatever.
Okay, so, and did he go with you? And he's walked around with you, or did he let you just roam free?
He let me roam free for the most part, because he's just like, okay, go have your nerd habit that I don't understand. I'll be over here. Call me if you need me.
What was Dad doing? Sitting on the dad bench?
No.
Or did he get into it a little bit, and try to get involved with, hey, my 11-year-old's into this, maybe I should check out what she's doing? No? Spider-Man? No. Nothing? Okay.
My dad wasn't really big into superhero things.
Oh, what's that into then?
Music.
Hey, very good.
He's a guitarist, or he was.
Okay.
Classic rock.
Dig it. Okay. And did he put any of that into you, Taylor Sivils?
The only thing that he really put into me from that thing was he always had a passion with it, but he never did anything with it, and he told me that that's one of the biggest regrets of his life.
Okay.
Was not following his dream with music, because he's amazing. He never read sheet music. He can play by ear. He can play on pitch. Like, you give him a note, he can play it perfectly, create an entire song. He's composed some things. I don't want to say they're exactly his original music, because I think that they were taken from, he would take a song, compose it a different way, and then basically make it his own that way by like rewriting some of it. But he never actually knew the notes. He just knew it like by ear.
So he was able to record his music, but he was never able to write the sheet music portion of it.
Yes. So
it's still amazing. I have guitars. I don't know how to play them. And it's a no fault of anyone but my own. Did you ever play any instruments growing up at all?
He tried to teach me, but I was too impatient because my fingers are tiny and I was always a really small child, so I couldn't reach them, and eventually I was just like, I'm not into this enough. I'd rather just listen to you play. I did get into choir in school.
Okay. So the singing started back then?
Yes. So I did learn how to read sheet music, and I learned how to play the piano by knowing how to read sheet music, but if you don't use it, you do lose it over time. So if you asked me to do it right now for you, I'd be sitting there like, I don't remember any of it. This is back in like 7th grade.
Yeah, this is something that I learned recently, Taylor Sivils. Taylor Sivils. Taylor Sivils. Remember it. I don't edit anything. Okay, so this is something I've learned recently. People in choir have to know how to read music.
Yes.
I did not know this. And now, looking at it, yeah, it makes total sense, because you have to keep up with all the music, the musicians that are playing. If you're accompanying them, you have to know what notes they're playing and where to come in.
Yeah, and most people can't listen to it and know where to come in at.
So what age did you start singing, the singing part of your life?
I've always loved singing.
Yeah?
But choir was just an elective in school, and I was just like, well, it's either this, band, or art. So I'd rather try singing in a choir and then move on to art eventually.
Yeah, I wish I would have learned to sing because there's less equipment to haul around. Let me tell you. You get into the band, you're hauling guitars, drums, keyboards, xylophones. You're hauling equipment. When you're in the chorus, you're hauling yourself.
Yeah.
And a book of sheet music, maybe. Fantastic. I mean, any concerts that you put on at a young age? Were you in front of anybody?
Mainly just family. In choir, I did stuff in school. I actually made all region twice.
Hey, she's not bragging. So, that's great.
Man, it does sound like bragging.
No, that's fantastic. No, I want you to brag on yourself. That's an accomplishment. That's a great accomplishment.
Yeah.
How did that feel? If you're going to try something, be the best at it, or at least strive to be the best at it. How did that feel?
It was amazing, and I won't say that I did every part, but whenever I did actually sit down and try, I was pretty decent at it. I'm still not the world's greatest singer, and I have lost that over time, but whenever you're a soprano one, that's the highest voice. You have to sing crazy stuff, and if you do not train your voice correctly, you will strain it.
Okay.
There were many times where I got laryngitis just because I would forget how to sing correctly, or I would try to do something out of my range without warming my voice up first.
But in chorus, are you singing on your own, or you're singing with people?
Singing with people.
Okay. Did you have solos, I guess?
I wasn't really one to do solos.
Okay.
You kind of had to have a solo type portion whenever you did all region because you have to audition. And then you go through, I want to say it was only one round, but like 2 or 3 different songs that you had to do.
So what kind of songs were you singing back then?
Anything that I was forced to.
Oh, okay. Well, what did they force you to sing? Taylor Sivils?
A lot of the classics. And then it was also the era...
to you, all right, I'm 50. The classics to me might not be the classics to you. I'm thinking even the early 2000s could be classics to you.
No, I'm talking about...
What classic song you were singing?
They pulled from a lot of different eras and a lot of different languages. So I had to learn a couple songs in Spanish. I had to learn 1 in Latin, 2 in French, and 1 in German. So all of that was interesting, to say the least.
Did you know these languages, or you learned them phonetically?
I just learned based on what I heard, and then
phonetically.
Yeah. The only real thing that I had an interest in. So French is weird with me. I can hear it and understand it, but I can't speak it to save my life, and that's the only other language I can read and understand.
Okay.
Japanese, it was not that way. I can speak it a little bit. No tourist level Japanese.
Right.
Which that in of itself is very difficult. But if you ask me to read it, I never learned.
Well, the little characters are difficult to say the least.
And once you get into kanji, most Japanese don't know all the kanji either. So it's really interesting, and it makes you wonder in a few years if that'll slowly dip out of their culture, because they have a lot of romanji, which is using English lettering for Japanese words, especially since the Olympics are coming up.
This is excellent. Taylor Sivils, we're going through your life, and I know we're skipping around a little bit. From 13 to 18, even from 11, you started cosplaying, and you started going to Comic-Cons. Okay, you weren't cosplaying at the cons at this point, but you said, Dad, take me to that con. What made you want to go to that con to begin with?
It was just interesting. I'd grown up around anime. My cousins were always into Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Inuyasha, Naruto, and they also played a lot of video games, and so I was exposed to that culture.
And these are the cartoons that you're talking about? Saturday morning cartoons? And And
Pokemon, Digimon.
Okay, all right. Hey,
things like that.
You're saying all this like I know what it is. I'm familiar that there is those things, but I don't think I had the chance to grow up with those things. But I did have my own share of Saturday morning cartoons, so I'm aware that that's a thing. And I know with Cartoon Network, now you can have cartoons anytime. How about that?
Nice.
This portion of the episode is brought to you by Cartoon Network. Okay. Taylor Sivils, you have, was it cousins, family?
Yeah.
That was dragging you to the couch and saying, hey, we're watching this.
No, it was just more of, hey, what are you watching? Oh, we're watching this. Don't tell your mom if you see anything you're not supposed to.
Okay. So Saturday morning cartoons had some risque things going on?
Sailor Moon is a lot of anime, because they get a lot more risky with it than they do in their day life, or risque. You do see, not full-on nudity or anything crazy like that, but you see outlines, and it's enough of a hint to where you're just kind of like, okay.
Okay. So it could be for someone of 11 years old, you might want to shelter that portion. I think, I remember there's
not
a line.
Not at 11.
No, not 11. Okay.
This was as like a much younger, like
Even
5,
younger.
6.
Okay.
But there's, at that time with the culture, obviously kids are exposed to a lot more stuff nowadays than even I was, thanks to the internet.
Oh, yay, internet.
And a lot of things are more tolerated now because it's become the norm. But back then, it was kind of a scandal to see any type of nudity, even portrayed in cartoons.
Right. I think they're hentai. Yeah, that's a thing.
And hentai is full on not what I'm talking about at all, thankfully.
No.
That is something definitely shelter.
Well, this is watered down for Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
I think there's a line in the band Bare Naked Ladies. In their 1 week, it says, Sailor Moon is the cartoon that makes me want to think the wrong things. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so...
And it doesn't help that the Japanese, they had put a lot of things in the original Sailor Moon that could not be aired in the U.S. With Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune, they were lesbians in the original one, and I think that translated onto the new adaptations.
Right.
But whenever it was first released in America, they were cousins.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
then I think they kind of brushed over that in TV shows as well.
Yeah.
This is
early 2000s.
Aunt Gladys's friend Joan. Yeah.
And there was, I want to say it was the end of season 1, whenever it was still with the first bad guy. It's been a minute since I've watched Sailor Moon, even though it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Where Tuxedo Mask basically beat the crap out of Sailor Moon.
Okay.
And
so
obviously that's not appropriate in America.
Okay, so the Tuxedo Mask and Sailor Moon are in the same universe.
Yeah, they got into, he was being controlled by the bad guy, and basically just beat her up.
But Tuxedo Mask is a good guy, though, right?
He is, but whenever he was under the mind control thing, obviously he did things that he wouldn't normally do. And whenever it was brought over to American television, they thought that would be a little too inappropriate for obvious reasons. And that's not to say that the Japanese condone beating wives or anything crazy like that. They're just more open with anything that they'll put in anime and in manga versus their day-to-day lives, because they as a culture are very polite and very conservative.
Yeah. So, yeah, it feels like America does get a little more sheltered than the Europeans and even the Asians, for that matter, in that respect. I've heard that there's new newscasting in Europe somewhere, in Italy and such. That's a whole other story. Yeah, no, it's a whole other story. So, freedom with their bodies and such. So, I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. It's subjective. How do you feel that affected your childhood, seeing these things at 5 years old, Taylor Sivils?
I'm not really sure that it had too much of an effect on me, because I did get the more sheltered version of it. But as I became an adult, obviously I learned a little bit more, got to experience the world more. I still haven't experienced hardly anything of life, but I was always drawn to older style writings. Like, my favorite work of all time is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde.
I like that. I like the story. I don't know that I've read the whole story, but I'm familiar with the painting. That you tell the story.
I don't know how to tell it without giving too much away, but...
Give it all away.
All right, so
Come on, it's the picture. How long? It's got to be 100 years old, at least.
Well, there's this beautiful, almost naive guy that moves to London. His name's Dorian. He gets involved with a painter that loves his look, and the painter name is Basil, and Basil has a friend that kind of corrupts Dorian and puts a lot of thoughts into his head. And basically Dorian somehow sells his soul, and it's stored within the painting. And so anytime that he does anything immoral or indecent, he still keeps that young, beautiful, untouched, polished look about him. But the painting reflects his soul. Like, there's so much debauchery in that.
So how does it affect the painting? I've heard he lives forever. Is that part of the story?
Yeah. Immortality. It depends on if you're looking at book versus movie.
Okay.
The best movie adaptation of it is the 2009 version with Ben Barnes and Colin Firth.
All right.
And that's also, to me, the most accurate representation of the book. But the concept is basically you never age, and anything that you do will be reflected on the painting, but not on yourself. So your old age is going to show in the painting. Anytime you get an infection from sleeping with whores, obviously it's going to be on that painting, but it will never touch you. Anytime that you get hurt, etc., etc.
All right.
So,
and that's the story that you enjoyed the most.
Yes, which I know that makes me sound like such a weird and messed up person, but just the whole concept of it was fascinating, because it's like, I understand that he was young and he was naive and he believed in the grand, lavish lifestyle, but it's like to really sell your soul and then have that learning moment whenever you're in your 50s, 60s, and you still look young and you're watching all of your friends die. It's like...
Yeah,
it's seeing
but it's
that
the price of immortality.
Yes, but it's seeing that transformation, because there's a great lesson to be had there.
Is there?
And we don't think about it, like, and I'm still very young.
Right.
But looking back now where I'm at, there's so many things that I look back on as a kid that some of it is regrets, like I see missed opportunities and things like that, but some of it's like, if I had just known then what I do now.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the greatest lessons that was there, is he kind of sees some of that and sees that the grass isn't greener on the other side, and basically has the epiphany that we all basically go through in a midlife crisis.
But to be 23 again, that to me personally was my best year. I was in the fire department. I was in the best shape of my life. I was on the radio as well. I was DJing on the weekends. It was great, and to give my soul to a painting, I don't see. Well, the lessons in watching your friends die, is that the moral lesson?
No, everyone's growing old around you, and you're kind of frozen in the same place.
Right.
But essentially, he made a contract and sold his soul.
Okay.
So, I think you can kind of see the transformation where it's like, okay, this was a really stupid move on my part. Why did I do that?
Why did I do that? So, there is value to growing older, and having your friends grow old with them, your loved ones growing old with them.
There's just value in learning life in general.
You're teaching me things at your young age, Taylor Sivils. Here I am 50, and I'm wishing, well, maybe 23 was great. Those are the glory days, and they do pass you by. But you got your whole life ahead of you, and we're just scratching the surface. We're not even out of high school yet, and I know you have a big trip that's coming in at 18 years old. And so the foundation was that you were a singer, you were into Comic-Cons and cosplay
and Japanese culture in general.
Japanese culture, the Sailor Moon cartoons, which I enjoyed as well. I didn't understand them all that much growing up, but I guess I must have been older when I was watching them, and I don't know if it was appropriate for me to be watching this, in my 20s, but I did. I enjoyed it, but they affected you in such a way that you had to go to the source.
Yes, especially because I always loved Studio Ghibli films, like Miyazaki's Spirited Away, one of my favorites. And then
the puzzled look on my face, I've never heard of it. Tell me more.
Man, that came out in theaters here in the U.S. whenever I was a kid.
Okay.
And that was one of the most memorable animes that I went and watched. And man, that one you're just going to have to watch for yourself.
No,
There's no way to describe it.
My 14-year-old daughter I would be remiss if I didn't ask subs or dubs.
Subs, definitely.
Okay.
With Spirited Away, they did a really good dub of it, so if you don't want to learn the language, then go with the dub. But for looking at it from both standpoints, the dub was very well done, and the subs, the English subtitles were, for the most part, on point enough with the translation, because there's a lot of things in Japanese that cannot be translated to English.
I'm dubs, man. I don't want to read at the theater, and listen to another language the whole time. I'm sorry that I don't know Japanese. Now, my 14-year-old is learning Japanese, and she is following your path in that respect.
Well, I commend her for that.
Yeah.
It is a very tough language, and unfortunately here in Arkansas, very few people speak it. Very few people in the world outside of Japan speak it. I think of like the 74% that speak a foreign language, only 2% are fluent in Japanese.
Yeah.
And I've only met one person that is. My cousin-in-law was actually stationed in Japan on and off for 10 years, so he's fluent, and he helped give me some lessons.
So Taylor Sivils, these words that you've said, the kanji and such, I've heard these words at my house. So
kanji is the Chinese characters and is the hardest level language. You have katakana, which is basically taking English words and having it in that type of level, and that's the second hardest. Then you have hiragana, which is basically your entry-level starting point, but they have it started to include romaji, which is English lettering for Japanese words.
You're schooling me, Taylor Sivils, and this is great. I knew I was going to learn stuff from you, and we're all learning from Taylor Sivils. Thank you so much for being a part of this. So far, so good. You started learning the Japanese for the trip to Japan, or
I started
previous
learning
to that?
Previous to that. It was always something that I had a passion for, and I was around it enough that I'm just like, hey, I want to have proficient enough skills to go to Japan and do voice acting. I want to be featured in an anime. That would be my life's goal. That is still something that I really plan on hitting hard and working towards in my career. Maybe not go to Japan and go for a Toei animation, but do something smaller, which is large scale for the US, but go to Funimation and maybe do one of the English dubs. Okay. That would be amazing for me.
It sounds amazing, Taylor Sivils. Wow. And these are things that you can definitely do. They're not out of reach. This is stuff that can happen, and if you put your mind to it, it will happen. If
I put my mind to it and I really lay down the practice and work with it, because voice acting is very different from film and television, and then you also have theater and stage production. All are different types of acting skills, and there's different rules and technicalities, and the business and how you work on set is totally different in each scenario. Now, I will put the disclaimer out there. I haven't really gotten a chance to work on too many sets yet, or in a lot of those settings, but my agent is amazing, and she's been teaching me and preparing me for all types of the business, to where I can basically put myself in any situation that I want to. Say there's a role for Disney doing something in one of their animated things. I could go for that. Or if I wanted to do a TV adaptation of a new show, I could go for that. Or if I can get my voice back to where it was in middle school, I could even go to stage and theater if I wanted to. So she's teaching me all of these different aspects to where I can really hone in on what I need to improve on, what I love to do, and help get me as many opportunities as humanly possible.
Man, Taylor Sivils, you're taking us to a whole nother facet of who you are, with the makeup, the cosplay, the singing, and the acting now. Okay, take me to Japan, because I want to know everything about what you learned in Japan, and how did you learn the Japanese that you learned previous to that? Because I know you were homeschooled junior and senior year. Were you still learning Japanese at that point? And did you learn Japanese previous to that?
Yes, I learned Japanese previous to that, but
when?
I've been studying it actively since I was 12, I want to say.
Okay.
Just little words here and there, little phrases. And then when...
Remember your first phrases? The stuff you can remember?
Itadakimasu, which is basically what you say before
thank you for the
eat.
food, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I know that one.
Or...
I learned that one in the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. Check that one out.
Or things like arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you. Thank you. Gozaimasu is more...
a
formal?
more polite form.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, my 14-year-old's teaching me too. All right, Taylor Sivils, good.
Or it can also put emphasis on the word.
Continue. The other catchphrases.
I learned a lot of the random words like shine, which can loosely translate to die, because it's something that you hear in anime all the time.
Okay.
Or
probably
like,
they're flying through the air, screaming it at their opponent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or like baka, which is idiot, or dumb. Choto, which choto just means like wait, or choto matane is wait a moment, wait a second, or wait up, depending on the context you use it in.
So from 12 to 18 when you get to Japan, and how, all right, when you're learning all things Japanese, it just follows that you want to go to Japan.
Yes.
And put that knowledge into practice.
Yes.
How did you get the opportunity to go to Japan?
I was contacted by People to People International. They'd contact me a little bit throughout the years whenever I was younger to go to like their Dublin trips and their trips to Europe. But obviously, not only could we not afford it, but my parents didn't want me going overseas. And the only one that could afford to put the funds towards it at that point was my grandmother, and she, bless her soul, was very against it. Mm-hmm. It's just not something that was very well understood. So she was just like, I don't really want to give you $3,000 for you to go there for 2 weeks, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yes.
And
this is a young girl going by herself to another country.
Yeah.
I would be a little apprehensive myself. Even a young boy going to another country by himself.
But,
did you know anybody in Japan at all?
Well, I had Japanese friends, thanks to Facebook, but...
Online, okay.
Yeah.
But no one that you met face to face that you can actually say, vouch for them.
Other than a Japanese exchange student that I had met.
Okay.
But,
and had that exchange student gone back to Japan by that point?
Yeah.
And were you able to meet them again?
No, I didn't.
No. Okay.
They lived a little bit too far out of where we were traveling from, because we stayed in Tokyo and we only went outside of it a little bit to go to Mount Fuji.
Okay.
But People to People had contacted me again. They're just like, hey, we're offering this trip for high schoolers. You can have the opportunity to earn college credit from it. You can at least get community service hours, some good recommendations. Would you be interested? And at that point, that's whenever I started really seriously studying Japanese, to go, okay, I need to know all of these phrases, because obviously I'm not going to have my phone on me 24/7, and if it does, there's no guarantee for Wi-Fi, which it's more common now. Now you can just buy a SIM card to where you can get Wi-Fi.
Okay.
But back whenever I went, that was not the case.
What year was it you went?
2015.
2015. Okay. All right.
So the only way that you could use their free Wi-Fi in Japan was if you had a SIM card, and none of us knew this.
Right.
So, and back then, international data plans were very expensive.
I suspect. I suspect so. And So, who did you finally convince? Okay, and how did people get a hold of you? Did you apply to them? How did they know you wanted to go?
I had expressed interest because they sent out a survey with it, just because they had kept in contact with me over the years. But then they were like, hey, we're conducting studies to see what trips people want to go on. If you could build your dream trip, what would you do? And of course, the only one that I had interest in was Japan. So I'm just like, I just want to go to exclusively Japan. I don't want to go to China or Korea. No offense to all of them. I would love to visit the country someday there. Sure. But this was something I'd always dreamed of doing. Right.
Japan was in your mind from a young age. So it stands to reason, of course. So who did you convince? Did Grandma finally give in and say...
Grandma did not pay for any of it. Like, no. I literally, at that time, I was 18. I was already working, already paying for my own stuff. My mom couldn't afford it. My dad couldn't afford it. Yeah. I would rather... I don't know how to phrase this nicely. I would rather choke than ask my grandmother for money. I hate doing it. I love her to pieces, and she's not a terrible woman by any means. But it always makes me feel very guilty to ask money from her, because it's like... I don't feel like I have that right.
Yeah, that's Grandma's money, man. I understand. I have a grandma. I have a great grandma.
And I don't expect it always come with strings attached.
I don't expect them to give me money ever. Yeah. No, of course.
She is kind of the more refined personality, so she was overly opinionated and always inserted herself on what I wanted to do, and kind of was just like, okay, well, I don't really think this is appropriate for you, and I just didn't want to have to go through those opinions or even ask her, because there was a 50-50 chance she would say no. And because of everything that I had gone through with life, with learning to earn it myself and having far more value from doing it, I was just like, okay, so what can I do to raise all this money in 6 months while still paying everything that I have to, while still maintaining my GPA?
What were the other expenses? Car,
gas, food, insurance, which at the time my insurance for full coverage was $300.
That's a car payment. Come on.
I had a car payment too.
That is a car payment. So that's double.
Yeah. So and then I would help my mom out with bills whenever I could, because obviously I lived in the house. I used the internet far more than she did. Mm-hmm. And
what kind of work were you doing? Entry level or?
I was just a file clerk, and I learned how to do some of the basic title work for backfill for that whenever they needed it, as well as some of the warranty stuff.
So not a big money job?
No.
Okay, so you're scrimping and saving, trying to...
Yeah, and the funny thing was I worked under my mother because she was the warranty administrator at Everett. Okay. So we were always right there together. But she was just like, even if I could hand you the money, I don't really want you to go, so earn it yourself.
Okay. And
if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. And so I did initially fundraising.
How did you do that?
I found websites for toys and stuff, and I built gift baskets to give to Toys for Tots. So I had people basically pick out stuffed animals that they wanted to give to other kids. Mm-hmm. And then the way that money was split was half of it went towards buying the product, and then half of it went towards my trip, to where it was a dual cause. That way, even if I didn't get all the money that I wanted, I would still be helping other people, and I felt that it would be far more beneficial. This was around Christmas time. I sold a lot of stuff online. I've always been selling on eBay ever since I was 9 or 10.
Wow!
Under my mom's account, of course, because, until you're 18, you can't really do that, technically, because you have to enter, all of your personal information and stuff.
I don't think eBay's going to come after you. Don't worry about it.
But I was basically trying to find any little way that I could. I did paintings. I did a lot of custom ones. Elsa was really popular back then from Frozen, so I was doing a lot of Elsa paintings for kids.
Wow. Very enterprising. Yeah. So you're an artist, too?
Not remotely.
What?
My aunt's a painter.
Okay.
She's very into art, and I spent a lot more time growing up with her and my cousins than I did with my mom, because my mom was always having to work, and so was my dad.
Yeah.
So
that's what happens.
Yeah. So I did come from that, and my mom's a good artist too. She just never did anything with it because she was always being compared to my aunt. So she just was like, "Screw it, this isn't really what I like, anyways."
Oh, how sad! Don't let anybody suppress you.
Exactly, because she was so good, but she always was better at pen and ink, whereas my aunt was good at painting. So I learned.
That's a comic book right there.
Yeah.
You need an inker. You need a colorist. Yeah.
Right.
Perfect.
But I learned the basics. Like I just traced it over and over again until I learned the hand motions and could transfer it onto paper myself, and then just made them for people. Babysitting, dog walking, literally anything and everything that I could. I even worked some retail and things during that time too, just so I could get all of that money. I had went, like I had said previously, I had went to Dwight and was like, "Hey, can you help me out with this fundraiser thing?" And he's like, "How about we work out a thing?" And I'm just like, "Well, we're behind on the filing, and I would really appreciate it if you don't want to hand me money. I'd like to really work for it and be of value to you as well, more so within the company. So if you could just like maybe increase my hours to where I would be working full time for a little bit, you wouldn't have to pay insurance or anything like that. It would just be as a way to help out." And they did that. So
very enterprising. Oh my goodness! Taylor Sivils. Okay, young people, learn from Taylor Sivils.
No.
You want something bad enough.
I mean, thank you.
You get it. You go. You work hard for it, and your end goal was $3,000.
No, the end goal for the base cost of the trip was a little over $5,000.
$5,000.
Yeah, and then I had to obviously get my passport and travel money, travel insurance, all that. Like, I'd had enough experiences on flights where I'm just like, if I have to fly American Airlines, you can bet that I'm going to have travel insurance because they're going to gate check one of my bags and it's going to get lost. Every time I've ever flown with American Airlines, this has happened to me.
Okay.
And obviously,
sorry, American Airlines.
Yeah. Obviously, this comes with greater expenses.
Okay.
As well as me being the type of person where I am allergic to some types of seafood. So obviously going to a place that's mostly seafood, I had to save up money in case of emergencies. I had to have my EpiPen, I had to have all that. So I was also like, the food that I would be more inclined to get would be like the snack foods, some of the onigiri, whenever I could find it, which is the little rice balls. Rice balls, okay. That didn't have fish.
Thanks for explaining that.
And things like that. I was very devastated to not be able to do takoyaki because it's basically like deep fried octopus balls.
Okay.
Sounds kind of gross. It's not like...
Hey, I'm from the Florida Keys. We like all things ocean.
Like
I don't know about octopus balls, but you know.
Well, I don't know what else it has in it, but I think cornbread with meat in it.
Okay.
Is kind of that thing, or like hush puppies with meat.
Yeah, I've eaten strange things in the Florida Keys, so yeah, I understand.
I was devastated to not be able to try those.
Oh. So completely allergic to fish?
Not all fish. It's actually more of an iodine allergy.
Okay. A lot of fish.
Shellfish especially.
Shellfish have iodine. Okay, all right. Okay. So we're heading for Japan. Wait, you worked hard, and when did you know I got the money to go to Japan? How did that feel?
It felt amazing, and it was down to the wire too. And there were so many times I almost gave up. Like, it was very tough. 6 months to raise all of that and pay everything else. You were just sitting there like, there were so many times where I almost gave up. But
and this is a 2-week trip.
Yes.
Over $5,000.
Yes.
Were you staying with a family over there?
I did get to stay for with a host family for like 4 days, I think.
Still, that adds to expenses if you don't have a host family.
Like, you basically had to pay for like your hotel, your flight, like everything was included within that price.
Okay. So what does people to people, or what is it? They've
recently...
What do they do for you?
They actually shut down, like that, the Anime Design Trip was the last people-to-people program. I think that they tried to start up a secondary company after that, but it fell through. Basically, it would just take kids on travel opportunities.
Okay.
To help get
do they
leadership
provide
skills.
chaperones, I guess?
Oh, yes, you were chaperoned. Like,
okay, good.
All of us were in groups. We all had a team leader that we answered to. We had to stay within our groups. We had to follow insane guidelines that were entirely unnecessary in Japan. Japan is the only country where you can walk around at night by yourself as a woman and be completely safe, provided you're not in Roppongi, which is where the American naval bases are and stuff. So you're going to get a lot of the drinking culture and a lot of basically what you get here at the bar scene. But other than that, it's safe to go to, and you really don't need to have a huge buddy system for it.
Okay, so it's not that you're going to Japan all by yourself.
No.
You had a group to go with.
Yeah.
Now, this group consisted of people all over the country or from
all
over the world?
US.
All over the U.S.? When you first get to Japan, what happens?
You make sure that everyone has their bags, and you check into the hotel, and then you're given your room keys, your breakfast vouchers, all of that stuff, and told, hey, you can't go outside. You can walk around the hotel until 10 p.m., but we do room checks often. After 10 o'clock, you have to be in your hotel room, no exceptions. And we stayed at the Shinagawa Prince Hotel, right next to Shinagawa Station. That was a nice hotel. There was so much shopping just in that part of it.
Yeah, but that's in the hotel.
Yeah.
When did you get to go outside?
The following morning.
Oh, okay. So that was day one. Let's check into the hotel, get settled in.
Yeah, get some sleep, try to overcome jet lag, and go from there.
Okay. So, tell me about your trip to Japan. Tell me all the highlights, all the lowlights. Taylor Sivils.
Probably the lowest part was the fact that I didn't stop and take pictures.
Oh, okay.
I took some pictures, but at that time I was very self-conscious of pictures of me, and I still am a little bit, which is ironic coming from someone who's trying to do this as a career, I know, but there's a difference between being yourself and doing a photo shoot. But I just tried to take in as many of the sights and sounds as possible, and I went there to shop.
Yes, but I think we've already gone through this introverted versus cosplay. We've already done that dichotomy, and yes, I understand. You could be very shy.
Yeah, I was focused more so on just going out there and meeting as many people as possible, talking to as many people as possible, soaking in all of the sights, sounds, and being in Tokyo. They're very forgiving, and they have a lot of tourists come through there, so most of them at least understand some English.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of them are more inclined to talk to you, people around your age, because it's hey, this obviously American girl stands out here.
Yes. Let's
go speak English to her.
Well, that's how I feel when someone of another ethnicity comes, I get to face them. I'm like, this is a learning experience. I get to learn from them. So, it's got to be amazing when you are an American in a foreign country. If they're open to that, you are the belle of the ball. Yeah. People want to learn from you. So, how did you meet the people? And what experience did you have, Taylor Sivils?
Well, I mean, I learned enough travel phrases to where I didn't sound like a total idiot, but my pronunciation was still off on a couple of things, and you can mispronounce one word, completely change the whole context of the whole sentence, and say something you're really not supposed to.
Ooh, okay.
You can make those mistakes.
Did you make any of those mistakes? And what was the reaction of the people you were interacting with?
They laughed at me, and they're like, I think that you mean this. And it's like, oh.
So it wasn't physical, it wasn't violent, but
no, it wasn't anything crazy like that.
Let's change. Yeah.
And it definitely helped that a lot of the people that I managed to mess up on were older, business people.
Okay.
Instead of kids around my age, so they were just they would not. They don't speak to you in English first.
Okay.
For the most part, so you're sitting there struggling to remember words and formulate them correctly and pronounce them. And then they're just oh, your Japanese is very good, but by the way, you need to do this in the future because you said this instead of what I think that you mean, and I hope that you have a wonderful time in Japan. Thank you for at least trying to learn the language.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. I know I go to Mexican restaurants, I speak Spanish, and my Spanish is very broken, but I'll try to order in Spanish, and they're very appreciative of that. And I'm guessing you had that same feeling when you went to Japan.
Yes.
Well, that's good that you had teaching moments.
Yeah, and that changes. It changes. Like, their attitude will change. So long as you make an effort, they're going to make the effort. But obviously, for those that went that didn't, they had a slightly harder time.
Well, how about the bowing? Is there a lot of bowing still in 2015?
Most of the settings that I was in were too informal for that.
Okay.
The only times where you really had to bow and do things was during like the tea ceremony and learning more about the culture, which was amazing.
You did that?
Yes.
Well, tell me about that.
Well, matcha is very bitter, and the stuff that you get here at Starbucks, it's probably authentic matcha, but it's sweetened. Real matcha is very bitter, and it's very rich. So, once you make your own tea, or someone makes it for you, it is frowned upon to spit it out or not drink all of it.
Okay.
And it was, it's obviously not something that's within our palate. Like, there's sweets over there, not our types of sweets. But they did give you candies to have with your tea. So that helped a little bit.
Was that something that they did for the Americans, or is that something that is in the culture as well?
I'm not sure, actually.
Okay. But at least...
I feel like a lot of that was just to appease us.
Okay. At least when you were drinking your tea, you had a little something sweet to kind of sweeten it as you were drinking the tea. All right. And I saw Karate Kid. I know they drink some tea, and they make it in their little pot. Is it ceremonial like that? Yeah,
whenever you go to the tea ceremonies and they teach you that part of it, you have the traditional whisk, you have the bowl, you have to learn what you're doing, you have to learn how to serve it. It was interesting.
Yeah. Now, I know in Karate Kid, she was making the tea for him. Is that something that, is it a female making it for a male, or is it...
It depends on who all is in the group with you, honestly. More females were doing it than men, though.
Okay. What's the dichotomy there? Is it men over the women, or women over the men, or kind of equal? Or how did you feel when you were
I wasn't
engaged with them?
I wasn't really exposed to too much. It was just more the people that happened to work there that was teaching us the classes were female. So... they kind of gave us a little instruction. It was just like, here, do it yourself.
Okay, so
we switched off with the people that we were in groups with.
So you learned a tea ceremony. Any other interesting things you learned in Japan?
Always keep your passport on you. Always.
Okay.
Oh, and they don't have toilet paper in the stalls most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Remember to keep your toilet paper with you as well.
Yeah, and they have Western style toilets, so that helps. But the squat toilets are interesting.
What's a squat toilet?
You stand and squat to use it. It's not like ours.
There's no seat then. Oh, okay. Is it a hole in the ground or a bucket?
It's a hole.
A hole?
It's so different. Like, I was so terrified of that I used the Western style toilets. I know I should have inserted myself more into that culture, but it was just a phenomenon that was so culturally different that I just couldn't get on board with, because I'm just like, I'm going to be that idiot that pees on themselves.
Well, I know using public toilets. I've hovered before, so that might be a little tough on your leg muscles.
Oh no, it's a very low to the ground. It's low to the ground, and you don't have a seat or anything to hold on to. You're basically like straddling the walls, going like that, and spread eagle.
Are there handprints on the walls where you can see people have done this?
No, that's just those of us that don't know how to use it.
Okay. Oh, no, all right. So, and this was not in the hotel, because you were at a pretty fancy hotel.
No, a lot of this was like in public and stuff, and the toilet paper was just something that I learned through trial and error. I always had Kleenexes in my purse anyways, because I have allergies, so that
good for
lucked
you.
out.
You never got stuck without toilet paper out?
No, thankfully. Well, they've got bidets built into their toilets, so a lot of it's unnecessary to them.
Well, the bidet thing is, I'm trying to get used to that. I've been to a fancy hotel, and I've used the bidet, and it's kind of refreshing. Okay, I get it. All right. So they did have that in 2015 when you went. So you learned the tea thing. You learned how to squat over a hole. No, but not too much.
And
Mostly,
always keep your passport on you.
Oh,
Police officers will
why?
stop you. And what's even worse is we were not trusted with our passports. Our delegation leaders kept them because they were afraid that we would lose them. Luckily, my driver's license and a physical printed copy of my passport sufficed, and I had to literally argue with the police officer if, yes, I'm lost, I can give you... we had a Japanese delegation leader on our side, too, that could speak English, thankfully.
Yes.
Her name was Nobuko-san, and she was amazing. But they basically tried to detain me and one of my friends that was in the group because we didn't have our passports on us.
So how many in groups when you're traveling around in Japan on this particular trip with the people to people?
Shoot, I think there's like 50 of us total.
50.
And then it was broken down to about 10 per group.
10 per group with one chaperone.
Yeah. And they recommended that we were in groups of 6 just to keep ourselves safe and at least one guy be with us. But I was just sitting here like, we're not fitting into that. And we're just going to do our own thing. And Angelia was so sweet. Like, she kind of let me lead her around. We only got lost a couple of times. Had to use Google Maps. Most of the time, I spent a lot of my trip asking people what things were, how much they were, and how to get from point A to point B because I turned myself around.
So yeah, and this is just the two of you then?
Yeah.
That sounds kind of dangerous.
It was during the day.
Okay,
Like,
not so bad. Okay.
It wasn't at night or anything crazy, and because at the time my cousins had just moved back from Japan, so they kind of told me a little bit about the area, what to avoid, what to look out for, and they're just like, Japan's a really safe country, especially when compared to America. But obviously, you still have to be cautious because it's a foreign country.
I think America's pretty safe. I mean, we're sitting out here on the street. I don't think anybody's going to do anything to us.
No, definitely not. But I mean, like, as far as walking around by yourself and being a female, it's a lot safer over there.
Okay.
You don't get harassed most of the time. And
why do you think that is?
Their culture.
Do you feel like they have more release?
No, they're just more respectful.
More respectful. I like that. Okay. Good deal.
So
Taylor Sivils.
they're less open.
Teaching us about Japan, her Japan trip in 2015. Now, you went to Tokyo, and you say you stayed primarily in Tokyo.
Yes.
But you went to Mount Fuji a little bit.
Yeah, we only traveled outside to Mount Fuji. We got to stay in a ryokan, which is their traditional hotels with the tatami mats on the floor and the hot springs. And of course, they rented it all out to where we could all go in the hot spring. Girls had their side, guys had the other. It wasn't communal, although they do have some of those where both sexes can go into.
Is this
hot springs?
Why wouldn't they be able to go
baths.
by themselves? Why wouldn't they be able to go co-ed? Is it nude?
Yes, it's fully
okay.
nude. And you have to wash your body off before you get in the onsen, which is the hot spring.
Natural hot spring?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And really, most of the guys, from what I heard, didn't do it because they were too scared. Whereas those of us girls were just sitting around. We were playing Never Have I Ever. One of my friends had accidentally bought alcohol because, of course, it's Japan. They don't really ID us. And we're sitting over here being total idiots going, oh, we don't know what this says. It just looks interesting. It was like these little freezer drinks, which in hindsight we should have known was alcohol.
Was it real colorful and looked like something? Oh, this looks like a fizzy drink. Let's try it.
Yes.
Okay.
And we'd bought the store out with them because there was a little convenience store, the 7-Eleven, that was like right near the ryokan. We didn't think anything of it until, naturally whenever you put alcohol in the hot spring, things happen. But we all have a good time with it. No one got crazy or anything, but there were a lot of so at last minute they had combined 2 different trips, so it wasn't just high schoolers. We had like 13 and 14-year-olds on the trip too. So then me being
that's a little bit more responsibility there.
Me being like the oldest one, there was only a couple other people that were 18 at the time. We're all sitting here and we're having to keep all of these younger kids quiet because we messed up to where none of us got in trouble, and I'm just like
So did the 13 and 14-year-olds partake?
Yes. None of us knew until it hit all of us, and we're just like, oh no.
You're feeling a little tipsy.
And it was one of those that we could have gotten kicked off the trip for.
Okay.
So we all tried our best
Right. But you kept it all together?
Yeah, we kept it all together pretty well.
And then you went to bed, and you got up the next day.
Yeah, we got up the next day, went to Mount Fuji. A lot of people climbed it. I, at the time, unfortunately could not. I'd had ankle surgery 5 months prior, so I still was not medically cleared to do so.
Oh, sad.
A little bit, but it worked out.
Hey, but you were at Mount Fuji. My goodness, look at that. The majesty of this gigantic mountain.
I was kind of sad, though. Initially, whenever the trip was offered to high schoolers, we were supposed to do the suicide forest and get a little bit of intel on that. Obviously, you can't go in the forest, but there was supposed to be a guide that was telling us some of the history behind it.
Wait a minute. We already went through suicide. What's a suicide forest?
They made a movie out of it, which I don't recommend seeing because it's stupid, but...
Okay.
They basically have a legend, and supposedly it's like one of their haunted sites. They just believe that it's haunted. A lot of people go in there to contemplate suicide in their lives. I think they actually have one of the higher suicide rates in the world.
Ooh.
But don't quote me on that.
No,
But it's
I won't.
just a place that has a very difficult history and past. And it was one of those things that since I'm drawn to the macabre, I was like, I want to learn about this because this culture is so different from ours.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna be at it whenever we go to Mount Fuji, so why not? Well, as soon as we combined trips and we had 13 and 14-year-olds, we weren't allowed. So we missed out on some culture.
But you go all the way to Japan, and of course, if there's something called Suicide Forest, I want to know more about that.
Right?
Let's go.
Yeah.
So don't watch the movie. All right, I'm not going to watch the movie. If I get a chance to go to Japan, I'll go to the Suicide Forest at the bottom of Mount Fuji.
Yeah, which you can't go into, and they've got it caution taped off and stuff, and things like that. But we would just have a local guide that kind of would sit outside of the base and give us a little bit of a history, which would then be translated through Nobuko-san, which didn't happen, and I was upset about. Still,
Hey.
I will always be fixated on that. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Hey, you always remember the stuff that happened bad more than the stuff that happened good. And I know we need to reflect
Okay, the stuff
on
that
the good
happened good.
stuff.
My most favorite memory. So, my host family took me on one of their little family outings to kind of introduce me to everybody, and I got to wear a traditional yukata, which is like their summer kimono.
Oh, cool.
And got to take pictures, do all that.
So whose kimono or whose yukata was that?
It was one of my host moms.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was really...
Well, was she the same size as you?
She was a tad smaller, but...
Because you're a little person. How tall are you?
5'2".
5'2". She's a little thing. Petite.
She was a little bit taller than me, but she was a lot skinnier.
Okay. So you put this thing on, and how did that make you feel? Going out in traditional wear to Japan.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was definitely different, but what happened after was my favorite part. So we went to Don Quixote, and on the 5th level at the very top, they had an arcade.
Don Quixote.
Yeah.
Is that a city? Because that...
Don Quixote is basically you have
Because that's one of my favorite plays. Don Quixote.
Yeah, you've got groceries, then you've got cosmetics, and then you've got travel stuff, then you have another level, and then you had the gaming center.
Okay.
And we all got to play air hockey, and I came from a very competitive family. So I played it to win and compete. Well, they just played it for fun. I hit the puck too hard, and it flies off the table, past my host dad's head, and hits this other guy in the back of the head. And I'm just sitting here like, oh no! And so I was having to like hold back tears and laughter while simultaneously going, gomenasai, hontoni gomenasai.
What does that mean?
It means I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Trying to be very polite.
Gomenasai.
Yeah, gomenasai.
Gomenasai.
Yeah.
Don't let me pronounce it wrong. Gomenasai. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
So what happened? Did the guy get up and...
He just handed the puck back, and he spoke English. He was around my age, and he's just like, you have good aim. And that's all he said, and then he walked away, and I'm just like...
Oh, this could have gone horribly wrong.
It really could have.
but this is... Oh, that's fantastic. Taylor Sivils playing air hockey in Tokyo, Japan. Sending pucks a-flying. All right. Well, that was a nice guy. That was a good interaction.
The only sad thing is it happens here too.
Well, yeah.
Like,
Are you still playing air hockey?
So long as it's not at Dave & Buster's.
Okay. All right. I guess they've kicked you off that table.
I'm not going to tell that story
All
today.
right. Little tidbits of Taylor Sivils. Catch her at a Dave & Buster's near you, which is probably the one heading to Benton from Little Rock.
Yes.
Okay. Japan. Anything else interesting happened in Japan? That was pretty fun.
I just got to connect with a lot of people.
Yeah. Any long-lasting relationships? Anybody you keep
Yes.
track with online at least a little bit?
Yeah, I still keep in touch with Ayaka. She was my host sister's friend.
Yeah.
And I still keep in touch with a few people from the Japan trip that I grew close to. We've kind of filtered off and gone in and out of each other's lives throughout the years, but most of us still follow each other on social media. We'll occasionally pop in and say hi.
Yeah. Anybody from Arkansas or
I was
close to
the
where-
only one from Arkansas.
That's it.
I was the only one there from
So
Arkansas.
not only you're an American in Japan,
I
but
was the
you're
only
the only
Arkansas.
Arkans, and people have funny stories to
And
say about
we-
people in Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're from Arkansas? Oh yeah, we know about you people. You know?
Yeah, and the most hilarious thing is, thankfully, I don't have too much of a southern accent,
Yes.
but our mannerisms are kind of frowned upon up north. Like, whenever we say yes ma'am, no ma'am, it makes them feel old.
You know, I've gotten that. I've gotten that myself, and I try to say names. Taylor Sivils. I'll keep saying your name, both names, because I want people to remember it. And you're going to be up in lights one day. I can see this. I foresee it in your future.
I aim to get there.
You are going to get there. So Japan affected you. All things Japanese culture have affected you. We're 18 years old, and we're getting out of high school. What's happened since then?
In a career aspect or just in general?
Just, it's your story. Whatever else you want to tell the people. What's your trajectory from 18 years old? Did you go to college at all, or any
yes.
trade schools? Or
I was at National Park for a couple of years.
what's National Park?
It's the community college in Hot Springs.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Initially, I didn't want to go to school at all. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do, and the only reason that I went to school was to keep a roof over my head. My mom and I didn't always have the greatest relationship, and she kicked me out. I was going to move to Orlando, or actually to Cocoa Beach, which is about 45, 50 minutes away, I believe.
Yes.
Because one of my best friends lives down there.
Yeah, Cocoa Beach is Cape Canaveral, where the space shuttle and rockets take off from.
Yeah.
So, yes.
But my aunt didn't want me to go, so in order to kind of keep me here to where I could work on the relationship with my mom and everything like that and it not be so hectic, she was like, hey, move in with us. Well, then she wanted me to go to college because she's just like, you need a career and, you know.
Sounds sensible to me.
It does,
I've been to college a bunch of times. You know, nothing that you would say. Mostly it's to get a certificate in something.
Yeah.
Here's your radio certificate. Here's your EMT. Here's your firefighter.
Yeah.
You know, just little certificates. What did you think about? What did you want to be when you grew up, Taylor Sivils?
I've always wanted to do acting.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Which you really shouldn't go to school for.
But I've heard two schools. I've heard of people that never taken a lesson.
Yeah, you can go to school, and there are a lot of really good programs. Like, you can get into your drama program, things like that. I'm definitely not knocking people that want to go that route.
Sure.
But it's just, college to me is probably one of the biggest waste of times that I've had, which I know I loved the learning aspect. Everyone can always learn more. And college is there to help you learn and help you build foundations and life skills to help you get transition into adulthood to where you can hold down a job and basically be a productive member of society. I don't knock it, and I think people should try it, but if you don't know what you want to do, don't bother going to school.
Yeah,
don't even bother getting a certificate, because my stupidity, I'm 13,000 in debt, only have 24 credits under my belt, and since I had to take a gap year due to finances, I'm just going to suck it up, pay my student loans, and rock on with life.
Yeah. I see your point, Taylor Sivils, and yeah, I took radio school, but it's nothing I couldn't have learned on my own.
Yeah.
I'm glad am I glad I went? I don't know. I battle with that. And then the firefighting school, yes, I was a firefighter for 10 years. But Could I? Yeah, that one I had to go to school for. But college, if you know math, if you love science, do it. Save the world. Go to college. You know, be that person.
Yeah, but if you're more of an artsy person and you don't really know what you want to do, unless you're going to go into cosmetology, don't bother. And the only reason I say cosmetology, you do need a license with it. There's so much more involved than a lot of people know. Like, especially if you get into special effects makeup or anything like that, you have to know how to clean your materials. You have to know how to work on other people. The school teaches you that, and it's a trade school for a reason. It's like how we need electricians to go to their schools and things like that. If you're learning a trade, go to trade school.
I like trade schools. I like it. It teaches you a skill that you can use in real life.
Yes.
So how have you been honing your skills since 18, since coming back from Japan, getting out of high school? Or did you graduate
yes,
from homeschool?
Yes.
Oh, how does that work out? Because, like I said, my 14-year-old's homeschooled. I have no idea how they finish. They take a GED?
I finished my classes. No. I actually have a true, genuine high school diploma because mine was accredited.
From where?
Penn Foster.
From Penn Foster. That's the homeschool that you did for the last couple of years.
Yeah, they have a college, but they had extended a high school program to where people could get a diploma. The school is in Pennsylvania, so they just mailed me my diploma. I had a chance to walk on stage, do it with everybody, have a graduating class, but I was just sitting there like, I would much rather go to Miami than go to Pennsylvania. Yeah. So I'm going to go to Animate Miami and be in that convention, then spend the money to walk across the stage from people that I've never talked to in my life that don't care that I'm there, because my family's not going to be able to afford to go anyways.
So you did Animate Miami in 2015? Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
Like right after I came back from Japan, I got back from Japan in July. It was the last 2 weeks in July, and then I'd already had the trip pre-scheduled and paid for to go to Miami.
Yeah. So, how was that experience?
It was really fun.
Is that the first time you've been out of state at a con? Or?
No.
Oh, you've done those before? Okay.
No, I've gone to cons up and down the East Coast.
Wow.
Since Grace lives in Cocoa Beach, and she was always really into this. Like, she took me, she used to live up near Washington, D.C., so anytime that there was one in D.C. or the Baltimore Harbor, things like that, we would always go to those, kind of trickle down a little bit, the ones in Florida.
Well, taking these trips can't be cheap. Who's financing the trips?
Me.
Oh my goodness, from 11, 12, 13, 14, your babysitting money is taking you all the way.
My parents weren't paying for those. They were just like...
No, they're teaching you how to be on your own. They're teaching you life skills.
For the ones that are here in Arkansas or like nearby states, by all means, we'll take you, but you're going to pay for the gas, you're going to pay for the hotel, you're going to pay for your badges, you're going to pay for the food. You want this to happen, you're going to pay for it, or you're not going. And you're not borrowing money from us to take you to these because, you know, it's not that they didn't support it, but they were just like, this is frivolous. Like, and that's just because my dad can relate on the sense of being kind of a nomad, wanting to experience things, and having a value on experiences versus material things. But my mom values the material things. She wants like concrete things of saying, hey, this is what I poured my money into. That's what she's proud of. Whereas, and my dad's kind of in the middle, but he's more leaning towards my thing with it. But I've always been one where it's like, I could care less about a Gucci bag or things like that. I would rather spend the money on something like that and go experience something new.
Yeah. And you did. You worked hard and you got to these conventions. Yeah. What was the first one you did out of state and when?
The one up in DC, I want to say that one's Anime USA.
Wow.
Don't quote me on that. It's been a while, but that was in 2013.
2013. Man, that's great. And cons since then, you've been dressing up, and what kind of characters are you dressing up as?
Oh, man.
What's your favorites? What was your first, and what's your favorites?
My first was Mizure Shirayuki from Rosario Vampire. The last cosplay that I did was Saber Alter from Fate Hollow Ataraxia at Animate Miami. And I've had a couple cosplays that have been in the works, but I haven't been to a con since, other than the one that we had in Hot Springs a little bit ago, and that was something last minute, so I didn't bother dressing up.
Yeah.
So I've got like half-finished cosplays in my closet.
Yeah, I've been able to get involved with some of the cons around here. Comic-Con when they first started, I was the official DJ and sound man for the first 4 years. So I never did cosplay of my own, but people tell me, "Oh, that's an OC. That's an original cosplay."
Yeah,
Doctor
there you
what?
go.
Okay, so I get
They're
put the funny hair on and
you can
and light up my stuff
or you can go in like unassuming clothing and everything. And everyone's like, "Oh, what's your character? Are you an OC?" And it's like, "No, I'm a background character." So you can go in normal clothes and just be like, "I'm an extra."
I'm an extra. See, that's fantastic. But I do have an appreciation for the people that put the effort in.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when you do your cosplay, do you strive to be like the movies, like the manga, like the cartoons?
Yes, like I took it as an acting gig.
Yes.
I took it as an embodiment of the character. I do a lot of OCs just because I got really into the fashion side with Japan. Gothic Lolita, which Lolita is not the terminology that a lot of people that have heard the word are thinking of.
Right.
It's Victorian era style clothing, very doll-like.
Yes.
Very modest, big poofy dresses, petticoats, lace, just elegance.
Yeah, there's Honor Leachy is a girl that I met at one of the cons here in Arkansas, and she is from Oklahoma, but she had a whole Lolita fashion show, and it's not just one character, it's a kind of the image of that character. Are you freezing?
No.
Okay, all right, because I see you shaking a little bit.
Oh no, a lot of it's just I'm in a metal chair. Semi-metal.
All right.
And I'm overly animated, so.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You're so smiley and very bubbly. And even when we're talking about things that may have been tragic or may have caused doom, you've always kept a cheerful disposition all through this, and I appreciate that.
Dark
Taylor
humor
Sivils.
helps.
Therapy. Okay. Well,
dark humor helps.
Dark humor.
Not therapy ever. Dark humor.
No. Okay. So you've never been to therapy?
Oh no, I've been to therapy. I'm
Okay.
still actively in it.
Okay. All right.
It's just eventually you tell it enough times where it becomes something like, "Hey, this happened to me. I'm just gonna try to do everything I can to make it sound like, oh, this is just an event, like talking about the weather versus it being a tragedy."
Oh, you talk about dark humor. I listen to a lot of podcasts that are held by comedians, and when is it a good time to tell a joke? Oh, right after it happened. Oh, that guy died? Oh, yeah, he had a big nose, didn't he? What? He just died. He's still sitting there on the slab, on the floor. You know, dark humor? No, it's a coping mechanism. I think it's great. You know, oh, the towers fell. Too soon? Yeah. When? No. Yes, we are aware that they're tragedies, but
put a lovely
it's
spin
the
on things.
Coping mechanism. Yes, if you dwell on these things, it'll eat you up inside. You have to let it out. I'm with you on that. Oh, for sure. Dark humor? No, humor, just fun. You know. So yes, Taylor Sivils. Man, I'm learning so much about you and so smiley. I'm so glad I got to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you reached out to me.
Oh, a blast so far. And okay, so how are you honing with the cosplay? Yes, you consider that a form of acting, and for sure it's a form of acting. If you get in the costume that is very like the character that people are familiar with in manga or on the cartoon, kids are going to come up to you. People are going to come up to you and go, "Oh yeah, I want to get a picture with you. I want to know you."
Yeah, and the craziest thing, especially when I do Gothic Lolita overdressing like a Disney princess or something, you get mixed reactions. I've gone in full makeup before, just walking around Walmart and stuff, and it's an interesting experience. People are either terrified of you or they're interested in you. And because I can make myself into a character instead of myself, it was my way of practicing becoming more comfortable with other people.
Yes. And does your personality change when you get into costume?
Yes.
Yeah.
It depends on the character, obviously, but there's still an aspect of it that's still me at the end of the day, but I can kind of do and say things that I normally would feel too uncomfortable to do. Like, I love whenever little kids come up to me because they're just like, "Look, a princess, a princess." And it's the greatest feeling to know that little kids look up to you and just want to be like you. As weird as that is to say.
No,
but
it's not. You become their role models. And as long as you embody that character and you don't take advantage of their little feelings, you want them to think, what are you dressed up as? What Disney character are you dressed up as? Or what's your favorite? Or what have you done?
I've done Ariel, and I wish that I had gotten some pictures of that.
And they come up to you and Ariel, as long as you embody that character, and
eventually I want to do Elsa. That's part of my platinum.
Okay.
I did used to have the hair for it.
So platinum blonde is not the natural hair color? Has it changed over the years?
I've been every color under the sun.
So many colors. What colors have you been?
Literally every color under the sun.
Blue, pink, green.
Pink, green, black, purple. I've done it all, and funny enough, my hair, about in May, was full blue blonde.